So health is really, for me, linked with empowerment and activism. It's important to be active, actively creating your health and the health of your family, your community, and of the world. So we're going to move out and continue building, creating our mental health.
Hey, family, welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your host, Rodney Butler. Look, we've made it. We've made it into 2025, and we are ready to kick things off. I think this is our second episode of the Black Man's Roundtable for Season 3. And with that, I want everybody to think about that with this episode, we have a roundtable of special ladies that's going to be joining me this evening for this episode. Two of them you will remember. We had them on after the election, the presidential election, November 5th last year, and I wanted to bring them on because I know that our community deals with things quite differently than the rest of the country, and I wanted to bring these mental health experts on to to help the listeners and the followers of the roundtable cope with that election, because we all know that there was some people that was ready to we had to put some people on bridge watch during that election. So I think they really helped our followers and our listeners do that, and this time they've brought on with them another very special guest that you will get an opportunity to meet and understand her as well tonight. As promised, last year that I would bring them back on after the inauguration. And guess what? It is exactly 1 month after the inauguration. And again, I understand that our community, again, look at things differently, react to things differently. And I just want to make sure, like they say, right? When America gets the flu, the Black community get COVID. So we know that you may need some of the things they're going to talk to you about and bring you tonight. But before I bring them on, let me give you some short, brief introductions, but I will ask you to sit back for a little bit because these are very accomplished ladies, and so it might take a minute or two. But this is about the shortest that I can get it, that I can get their bios, okay? Because I know they want to come in not talking about themselves, so I got to do this for them. They don't want to come in; they want to come in getting our money, our body, and our spirit straight. So, with that being said, I'm going to introduce first the new lady that's going to be on this panel tonight, and her name is Dr. Jessie Fields. She is a Harlem physician and a community organizer and an activist and a poet. Growing up in poverty in the Black community of Philadelphia, she set out on a career to bring better health conditions to poor urban communities. Awarded a National Public Health Service Corps Medical Scholarship, she attended Bryn Mawr College and the Medical College of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. She has been a primary care physician in the Harlem community for over 3 decades. In addition to medical care and community organizing, Dr. Fields has been involved in medical education and helping young people from underserved communities pursue careers in medicine. She is currently helping to lead the Committee for Independent Community Action Building, Dr. Fields is leading an initiative creating our mental health workshops with therapists and performance activities from the East Side Institute. The workshop used poetry to build social connection and bring history and emotion together in the group building process. Next is Rachelle Moore. Rachelle Moore is a licensed clinical social worker. She grew up in a black family where there was no conversation of what it is to be Black. When she was excluded or treated differently, Blackness was never acknowledged. This left her feeling invisible and crazy. Rachell majored in psychology at Case Western Reserve University, Cleveland, Ohio, to discover what was wrong with her. The rise of the Black Power movement and who were passionate about making positive changes in the world gave her a new option to grow. It fueled her desire to become a therapist and help other Black women and men grow and develop emotionally, professionally, and politically. Rachell has a diverse perspective on mental health and wellness, giving her long career working in psychiatric hospitals and corporate environments. She chooses to practice social therapeutics, a non-diagnostic humanistic relational psychology developed by Dr. Fred Newman. And last but not least, we have Dr. Raquell Holmes. Uh, make sure I got it right here. She is a pioneer in the use of improvisation and performance in scientific research communities. In addition to improv science, she founded and directs the Innovative Arts, Humanities, and STEM conference, cultivating ensembles, and the radically inclusive Freedom Festival, which we're going to talk about, Juneteenth to Independence Day. Dr. Holmes has worked with thousands of scientists, physicians, years across the country in diverse settings. Universities such as Harvard Medical, the University of California, and Arizona State University, National Labs, Academics of Science, including the National Institutes of Health. She is a consultant and coach for executive managers in professional societies such as the American Meteorological Society and the American Institute of Physics, and corporations such as AccuWeather and Performance of a Lifetime. Thank you all for bearing with me on that. Like I said, these are very accomplished ladies. And ladies, welcome. How you guys doing this evening?
We're doing great. Great to be here. Thank you, Rodney, for having us.
Great.
It's
Definitely.
absolutely great to have you, Dr. Fields, and it's absolutely great to have you all once again, Rachell and Rick. That 3 times fast. That being said, we don't want to waste too much time, because I tell you what, those introductions could have taken much longer if they knew what I know about you ladies. That being said, Raquell, I know we want to I'm gonna let you kind of kick this thing off, because we do have, I want to let and that I will kind of weave in as we continue this conversation this evening. But I know we want to talk about the Freedom Festival and how freedom and independence kind of coalesce with each other and go hand in hand. And would love for you to kick that off for us.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Rodney. It's wonderful to be back. And I was thinking the Freedom Festival grows out of the political movement in the US, where citizens, in response to Floyd's murder, took to the streets, right? They took to the streets and said, we're not putting up with police brutality and the killing of Black men and Black people. So that created an environment where many of my white scientist colleagues said, Raquell, what are you doing in response to what's happening? What can we do? And I created something called Uncomfortable Independent Conversations, which was and has been a multiracial environment for people to talk with each other across race and class to create a new experience of race in America. That was happening at the same time then when Juneteenth became a national holiday. And Dr. Fields organized a conversation with different Black leaders and leaders of youth development with the All Stars Project on what does Juneteenth mean to us and what is it to become for us in the Black community or for development. And that's where I learned of Opal Lee and Opal Lee's championing that we should celebrate emancipation and the ending of slavery from Juneteenth to July 4th, and that it be an activity over those 16 days of people coming together to explore freedom and independence. And that celebration to me was an opportunity to add to what was already happening. People, the grassroots people saying, we want to do something other than what our government and official institutions are doing. We want to come together and create a way of being together. So the Freedom Festival is an invitation to people all across the country to do something that gives expression to their experience of freedom and independence in the United States, and to do it as an invitation to build together. So it's both, it's kind of an ordinary, can we create something new together event. And Rachelle and Dr. Fields participate in the Freedom Festival as well. So to me, it's a way that we can create societal well-being is by being able to talk to each other and create something new with our experiences.
That's really fantastic. Maybe I could jump in and if that's all right, Rodney.
Yes, Dr. Fields,
and
definitely.
Raquel
You know,
and
but
Rachelle.
what I was going
Go
to
ahead.
say, Dr. Fields, right before you start, is that what you ladies are doing are ahead of the time and very innovative, because, you know, we know that what's happening with the new administration in the White House is that they are, you know, cutting out things like, you know, Black History Month, things like Juneteenth. They said that they're not going to recognize them. Well, one thing I've been saying over the past few weeks is that, you know what? Do we really need them to recognize them? Because we are doing our own thing anyway, right? We don't need the recognition from the White House. And so when I say that you ladies are ahead of everything, you are already, look, you didn't, I'm sure that you three ladies did not get the permission of the White House to do your Freedom Festival, right? So I just wanted to plug that and say that is so important that you guys continue to move on with what you're doing as far as Black history and as far as Juneteenth, regardless of what, you know, is coming out of White House. Appreciate that. Thank you. Dr. Fields, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Rodney. No, it's really, thank you for having us. It's great to be here. And I was just really inspired and admiring what Raquel said about the Freedom Festival. I'm really honored to have been part of inspiring it and continuing to work with her and with Rachelle on developing it. So part of the Freedom Festival uh, is allowing ordinary people, just like we were saying, and in the Black community and other communities of color and around the city and around the world, to come together and create some new opportunities, new ways of communicating, build community together. So creating our mental health, which is an initiative that I lead, that, just to give a little history of it, it started about 5 years before the pandemic. It grew out of the work of Dr. Lenore Fulani, Dr. Fred Newman, social therapeutics, which has been mentioned, and we all kind of come together in developing this new therapeutic approach. And creating our mental health was on the streets in Harlem and Brooklyn, around the city, talking to people about health issues, and in particular mental health issues, and new approaches, and whether people were interested in finding new ways beyond traditional psychiatry and medications to approach community mental health and community health. And I think physical and mental health are very interrelated and intertwined. So for years, in the summer at Harlem Week and in Brooklyn and other parts of the city, we would go out with a survey and talk to people. And also there were therapists, doctors, community organizers have been building this movement. And we started before the pandemic, but when the pandemic hit, we went virtual online. And about 2 years ago, I went back out to the community doing workshops, creating our mental health workshops. And it really, for me, the experience of going through the pandemic was something that made me want to directly work with my patients. I'm a primary care physician. I take care of patients with diabetes and high blood pressure and, you know, chronic lung disease and asthma and so forth, as their primary care physician. But I also am very much involved in supporting people and helping people deal with their emotional health, with their social health. And I've been involved with social therapy for a long time, social therapeutics. It's helped me personally, and also I was part of this movement to grow it in communities, working with Dr. Lenore Fulani, Lois Holzman, who's the director of the East Side Institute, and many other people. And so I started after the pandemic. Well, we're not really in the part of the pandemic where it had slowed down. It wasn't as intense. We weren't in social isolation. A couple years ago, I started going around, particularly in the Harlem community. My practice is in Harlem. So I went around to the churches and community centers talking about creating our mental health and doing workshops. I was doing health workshops about diabetes and hypertension. And I asked if I could come and talk about mental health. And the Harlem Food Bank said yes. I started doing it there, and then I started working with Black Health at a church in Harlem, and we have about 6 places where we do them. One I'm doing tomorrow at St. Philip's Church on 134th Street, and I just wanted to give a sense of the workshop itself. We use theater exercises, improv exercises at the beginning where people say their name and do a motion. It's usually maybe 15, 20 people, and we do that. The first one person says their name and a motion like Jessie or whatever that might, anyway, Jess, whatever. And then everybody does that together. It breaks the ice. And then we perform an emotion with a movement. You say joy or happiness or loneliness and perform that. And then everyone repeats it. It always gets people laughing and, having a good time. It breaks the ice. And then I use poetry in the workshops because I love poetry. And we do a lot of Black poetry. We're right there in Harlem. Where Richard Wright, W.E.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes, others, and we read their poetry and then we talk about it. And we give people like 5, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to write a word or a line or just say how they responded to the poem. And then we have a conversation. Some people write full poems. Other people just do lines or words. Some people just sit and listen. Everything is appreciated and welcomed. And we've been doing these, and it becomes really, sometimes we perform the poem. This is Black History Month, as we know, and we just, January 20th, we celebrated Dr. King's Day, the holiday. We also celebrated on his actual birthday, January 15th. I was writing a poem. We performed the poem. It kind of went from my reading the poem into everybody performing the poem. We did a march. It was called Dr. King and Marching Feet, about the Montgomery bus boycott. I have some lines. Maybe we'll do those. But what we're going to do now, this is creating our mental health, and it's really about the mental health of our communities, not just individually, but our being very, very active. I think it's critically important to what you were raising about this era, the political era. The new president, who we have, who we're having to deal with. And I think this kind of empowerment, activism, so health is really, for me, linked with empowerment and activism. It's important to be actively creating your health and the health of your family, your community, and of the world. So we're going to move out and continue building, creating our mental health. We're really glad to be part of the Freedom Festival. We want to do virtual, hybrid, both online and in-person events as part of the Freedom Festival. We're working on that, but I'm really glad to be working with Raquell and Rachelle. So that's some about creating our mental health, and we're building it. We want to do it, everywhere, really, beyond Harlem and Brooklyn and the Bronx and, communities in New York City. And we're starting to do that, to go international.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The Freedom Festival sounds very, very exciting. But more than that, you ladies sound very, very energetic and exciting about about this work, and I just hope that people understand that it is needed, and people in the community as well as the followers here are looking forward to it. Rachelle, you want to jump in?
Well, they've said everything and energized me again.
I know, right?
So hopefully I can add something to what we're all doing together. I'm just so happy, Rodney, that you have the 3 of us together, and especially to be working with Dr. Fields, who I don't get to see much anymore, since the COVID situation, because she's in New York. So this is really, it feels cozy, It feels kind of like we're in the same room, and I like that. And I'm just totally re-energized every time I hear us talk about what we're doing regarding freedom, because it is ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and that's nothing new in the Black community, as far as I'm concerned, historically. And just the whole creation of the Freedom Festival, to me, coming out of such a dark time with the murder of Rodney King that year, and all of the upheaval. Um, that's what I like about the community that the three of us are a part of, is that we're building with what we have in the world as it exists now. And that's good, bad, or ugly. But we're making something beautiful out of everything we have together. And I think that's kind of a historical trait of our culture, too. And I love the fact that it's creative, performatory, um, as well as psychological, spiritual, um, physiological. I mean, it's just so wonderful how we work together and how we build together with what we have. I mean, that's how I met these two dynamic women, was through the work that they were doing. I've always wanted to change the world. I come from a military family. Dad was an officer, and at a time where that was rare to see Black officers, so it was a struggle all those years. And he was a 25-year person. And, you know, military people are fighting for freedom. But what is freedom when you grow up in a Black skin? It's not quite the same freedom that other people are talking about. I learned as a child. And so it was kind of I don't know what the word is, a disconnect between being military, fighting for freedom, and not necessarily having the freedoms that we were fighting for yet. And so I think I grew up wanting to change the world in a family that did things to do that. And then when I found social therapeutics, uh, that was started by Dr. Fred Newman, Lois Holtzman, and others, I found all kinds of people that were also trying to do the same thing. And I really never knew that it wasn't just like a childhood fantasy of mine, but there were grown folks that had been working for years in communities like Dr. Fields and Raquell Holmes are talking about, trying to make changes and doing it all the time. It's not just around election time. It's not just a 4th of July thing. It's a daily, ongoing activity. And that's what keeps me excited about it. It's not like just a trend.
Yeah.
It's serious. And it's passion that people have, for continuing to do this work in the streets, going door to door. I mean, it really made me feel for the first time that I am in the world. I'm from the world, and the world is mine. Because and thank goodness for COVID, because now we have the virtual world that actually exposes us to even more people than we would ever see. I'm not flying everywhere, but there are people in some of our communities in other countries all the time. And freedom is a worldwide movement. It's a particular look in the United States, our history. And that's where I'm located to do my work. And I just, I hope Dr. Fields will share her poem that she shared with us too, because it really moved me when I heard it. And it so exemplifies what the work looks like that we're doing, that we're building with what is. And we're transforming what is into what else we can be doing. It's the else that we do. So I'll just pause there and hear what else is coming.
Yeah. I wonder if I might say a little bit more of how I see what Jessie, you and Rachelle just said in relation to the Freedom Festival. Um, because it's both, and I'd love the poem to be, Jesse, because you write poems and you
Yeah.
use the poems in creating our mental health, and that's one of the events that takes place during the festival. We've had people do online poetry readings as an event during the Freedom Festival,
Mhm.
looking at the relationship of poetry and freedom building. And we've had people do events that were sharing untold stories in our histories. Rachelle, you did posting of music like throughout the last year's festival. So individuals, organizations, groups are choosing activities that they can do that invite people to explore freedom and independence together, and that freedom to create our mental health. Jesse's work always grounds me in working to be in the streets and to be closer and closer to our poor Black communities rather than in some academic or I'm gonna I'm gonna use the word bougie um context. Um so because somebody called me bougie and I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of live there too. But my work is to get to the streets because it is that's part of the work has been all of us are working to continue to expand the freedoms and independence that we've been fighting for since we got here, since before the country was formed, as the country was formed, as we did our revolts, as Dr. Ife had said before in your first episode this season, as we are having Juneteenth, which was celebrated before it became a national holiday. We are organizing. And for us, I think I can say independence has to do with that we are going to relate to and create with each other what we need, as you said, Rodney, regardless of whether we have the permission ahead of time from an authority. We're going to be continuing to create what we need. That's our exercise of power and freedom. And Jesse's poetry does a beautiful job of being historical and inviting of action. And so, and I know you used it in a creating our mental health
Yes,
recently. Um,
I did. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. One thing I love
Dr. Fields,
to,
I think that I definitely believe that your poem, I'm eager to hear it. I have not heard it. And I think it will be an outstanding closer for this episode. So,
okay.
yes. So when we get to the,
So we can, yes, you tell me
and we talk
when
about, I'm going
we
to,
get to that
ask,
point.
yes, I'm going to ask you guys, I'll be asking you guys what you have coming up and that kind of thing. And, how people can reach out to you and that kind of stuff. And so, Dr.
Yeah.
Fields, please, or somebody, remind me to make sure that she get that poem in here. But
Okay.
go ahead, Dr. Fields. You were saying.
No, I thank you. We really appreciate having this opportunity to be on the show and to talk to many, many people, your audience. And I was just thinking how important, how much we are doing this because we want to build it. We want to bring it to more people around the world, in the United States and around, and connect.
Hmm.
We want the people of the world to be able to move freely. And we, everybody, and as the African American community, we feel that there's a leadership role we have to play, to bring the people from the diaspora and from all over the world together in freedom and independence. And so I just wanted to invite people who are listening, watching, hearing us, meeting us, to be in touch with us. You have, Rodney, you have information about how people can be in touch. We want to know what you think about our work, and we want to invite you to participate in it. I think it's, I'm just so glad, I can say this is Black History Month. We just celebrated Dr. King's birthday, and but we can do this all the time. I think Black history, the history of our people and our struggles and our fights, should be every day.
Yes.
We can connect with folks, our ancestors, people, who are no longer here but have done such incredible things. Harriet Tubman is one of the people that I've been kind of talking about and reading a wonderful biography of, and some poetry that was written about her. And she, certainly she was not able to read or write. She led people out of slavery, and she, developed a whole approach using nature, using the sky and the stars and nature, the trees and animals, in terms of figuring out how to get from Maryland to Philadelphia and then Rochester and then Canada. Um, so connecting, that's one of the things that we do in creating our mental health, the freedom to create our lives together, our health together, and the independence to go beyond the traditional approaches. And sometimes, they can be helpful. Medications, even psychiatry. I'm not saying that it can't be, it could be, but we can do so much more. We can grow. People can grow and develop, which is sort of the heart of the social therapeutic approach. And I think it's an approach that can really change the world, as we were saying. And we just, we want people to reach out, to connect with us, to be part of the Freedom Festival and part of creating our mental health.
Rachelle, before you jump in, I just want to say, Dr. Fields, since you brought up, Harriet Tubman, she famously said that she would have freed more slaves only if they knew they were slaves. And I think that had Harriet Tubman had you three ladies around at that time, what you're doing with freedom, independence, with social therapeutics, you would have allowed, or you would have, so many more people would have known that they were enslaved of the mind, and she would have been able to free more people. So, and we know that, slavery is a psychological, and a mental thing just as much as it is a physical thing. So it just makes me think of the work you guys are doing in educating people and letting people know how they really do need to free their mind. And I just can't help but think about that quote or that, saying from, from Harriet Tubman, that she would have freed more if they just only knew they were slaves. And you ladies are doing will show our community and others that, free yourself, free your mind, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I experience that often where people, right now, people are suffering in part because it's hard to pay our bills. And I don't care what level you're at, you're like, how am I freaking gonna pay my bill? And my family was saying, wow, we did everything right. And again, I did say I'm bougie. And it's like, whoa, how am I gonna pay these bills? And then I think about the people who have less than me and have fewer resources to reach out to people. And they're like, how am I going to pay my bills? And they look at me and they go, and you got so much stuff. And sometimes there's a little anger in there, right? And or we blame ourselves, right? And anger is good. I'm not I'm not pushing back on anger. We should be angry, but the angry is not with ourselves or with each other. It's with the systems that we've created that actually have us strapped in this way. And the question becomes, how do we create an environment where we can have honest conversations, both about how we got here, because the absence of talking about how we got here, the absence of talking about recent current history, leaves us looking in psychological terms at ourselves and others. And that is unhealthy as far as I'm concerned. It's unhealthy for the country, it's unhealthy for ourselves, for our families, because we can't talk to each other. We can't say like, dang. We can't say like, oh, I'm so upset because I can't pay my bills. Instead, we yell at each other for not taking out the garbage and throw something, right? Like, because it's emotionally stressful. And I think it's so important. And this is what we said back in our episode after the election, for us to be talking to each other.
Absolutely.
Right? And that gives us a chance to, and both talking to each other gives us a chance to feel something new, and the creation of things like the festival And again, it could be like just having dinner with people and like, hey, I'm going to celebrate emancipation not only on Juneteenth, but on June 26th. And I'm going to invite my neighbors to eat with me. And we're going to talk about freedom and independence. And that's the thing. But that kind of creating together gives us hope and a recognition that we can do something. So Rachelle and Jessie are wonderful builders with other humans, whether in the military or down at Harlem on the street, builders of conversation and new experiences.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. If I could interject, if I may, I was thinking about this experience, which I felt like you were describing it, that I had recently. I'll try to be brief, with a patient who was not able to pay her bills. Her house was her apartment. There was a fire in her building. Her apartment was burned. The whole building was burned out. She's living in a shelter. She's someone I've known for a long time. She's a wonderful woman, but she's going through a very difficult time. The shelter is not clean. It's not, it's terrible. And she's in a very small room. She can't cook. She needs to be able to eat healthy. And I spoke with her. We spoke together in the exam room. She's a patient of mine. She just talked with me, and I tried to be with her. I just tried to, listen and be there, and share, how long we've known each other, our relationship, which is so important. And then I went to this poetry workshop that evening, Friday evening, and it was a workshop where they asked you, a person who developed this outreach poetry, live poetry, to talk about someone who's meaningful to you and to write a poem, and we'll write poems to them. I volunteered to talk about this woman. Her name is Mildred. She's becoming famous. And I was interviewed by the facilitator of the workshop about her, what she's like, and so forth. And then the entire workshop, was about 15 people, wrote poems to Mildred. And I copied those. They emailed me the poems. I wrote one. Still have to give her mine. I copied them. I called her up. I asked her to come back to the practice, and I read her those poems. And she cried, and she said, "That's just what I really needed this." And it was, and I shared with the other people. I sent them a picture of my giving her the poems for Mildred, they were called. But what Raquel was talking about, listening to each other and doing something like that. So I'm going to try to begin a project, if people will do this with me, in creating our mental health, of going out to the community and writing poetry with people, talking to people, and giving them a poem. There's a whole approach that's been developed that I'm going to learn about, but it's an example of how you can be giving, and it makes such a big difference, even if your physical circumstances are not the greatest, and you can get help with that as well. But the importance of emotional connection and support and community building, how meaningful that is. And you can't replace that with, a medication for depression. It just doesn't give you the same thing. So that was a very important experience. And using poetry is just perfect for bringing out emotion and being giving in a beautiful way.
so touching, Jess.
Absolutely.
I'm emotional.
As I said, ladies, my goal is to try to intertwine a couple of questions, maybe 3 or 4, into this conversation that I know that the followers and the viewers of the Black Man's Roundtable, want to know and want to get that information from you, from ladies like yourselves. And the first one, and please institute or incorporate, social therapeutics and freedom and independence into your answers, because I think that we need to start thinking a different way. I think that many things that we are doing today in order to survive this political climate that we're in America and kind of around the world, and going into this year, I won't use the word racism a whole lot. I kind of use anti-blackness, because that is a global thing. just like it's no different from us being a global majority. You know, we're kind of culturally conditioned to, you know, see ourselves as minority, but, you know, we are a global majority, and there is a lot of anti-racism. But I say that to say this, is that believe in the country, especially here in America. I think that African Americans are the most unique black people on the planet as far as what we've been through in a short period of time, and in the generations that we've been through them. I think that we need to start to go back a little bit and deal with the hatred and the anti-blackness and everything that's thrown on us, because, you know, our ancestors didn't have a lot of the resources that we have today, but I do believe that our ancestors were using many of the techniques that you ladies are talking about. When we're talking about freedom and independence and therapeutics and all of that, they may not have, maybe they have. A lot of times I think they were have the more fancier words to call it this or to call it that, but in practice they were doing it, because guess what? Old master didn't give them a whole lot of other stuff. So they had to, with the stuff that you guys do, you don't need anybody to give you anything. Think about it. They had just as many resources as you have today to do the work that you guys are doing. So with that, please think about social therapeutics. Think about, you know, freedom and independence and the things you're doing at the Freedom Festival for these few questions that I have. And the first one that I want to weave into our conversation is, what are the signs that political stress is adversely affecting one's mental health and physical? Because we do have, even she may want to go down that road, but let me start over. What are the signs that political stress is adversely affecting one's mental health and physical health? When should professional help be sought?
Is that a question for me or
Anybody,
for all of us?
everybody,
Yeah,
yep.
why don't
Whoever
we
wants.
have Rachelle, who's a therapist, social therapist trained. Go ahead, Rachelle. What do you think?
Let's see. If the person is breathing in and out,
Exactly.
be a sign. If they're a human being in the
Yeah,
environment
right.
we are living in, still breathing, that's a sign. If the person has any family members or friends, or if the person doesn't have friends, if the person doesn't have a home, if the person does have a home, if the person is struggling to lose weight or gain weight, if the person is breathing, basically, I can't imagine not needing to have support to live our lives with what we have in the world
Yeah.
daily. And I think one of the things I love about the three of us is that we want to help people actually change the conditions that they are living in. Because you know, a lot of what we're describing, whatever you call the symptoms or whatever, are coming from being existing in these environments that have the particular stressors and challenges that we've been talking about, that everybody is going through. And in the way that we need support to do something with it is ongoing. I'm not a fan of waiting until something needs, you know, where you have to call the doctor. I'm into prevention, and I think we all are looking at wellness and prevention, not waiting till something becomes acute, but daily care, self-care. You know, I used to say health care, HEALTH, really should be hell care in America, because it kind of is. It's difficult to navigate the healthcare system for a human
Right.
being to be well. Being well is no joke. I mean, it's not easy. It's
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and it's not taught anywhere. How do
Yeah.
we care for ourselves and our communities? I mean, it's not a class. I don't care where we went to school. It's really a grassroots, person to person supporting each other day to day
Hmm.
in living this life as it
Right.
is, and putting together our resources, which I think historically, yes, we have, from our ancestors. I mean, we have that's why I like the performatory aspect of the philosophy that we practice too. Poetry, music, dance, art, just you name
Yeah.
it. All of the creative abilities that we have as human beings are essential and very therapeutic. And they're free, really, and we can, and I think there's something about what we're talking about, getting to know people, connecting with another human being. That's really addressing one of the hardest symptoms in our culture, which is alienation, just this whole separation and distance that's so unnatural for
Yeah.
humans. This closes that separation, connecting with people, getting to know each other. It's kind of hard to like hate somebody that you know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There are too many good things about a person. And so we're talking about connecting as humans, and humans
Absolutely.
do connect and need the connection. And in the Black community, there's a particular way that looks. And I think I love the fact that we take that on. We take it seriously, and we're taking it on
Thank you,
I'm
Rachel.
smiling
collectively,
because we have so
individually.
many.
Raquel,
What?
you,
I love the question, and
it's a good
I'm
question.
thinking, like what it is to get help and
Hmm.
how like loneliness and isolation is like epidemic right now in our country is what we understand, and that's not unique to us. That's everyone. And if anything, and actually I learned this from a Trevor Noah interview, but it's like Black women are doing quite well because we actually talk to each other because
Yeah,
there's the kind of the question of support, but that there is it is always ask for support. It is always have somebody go with you to the doctor. It is always seek additional being with. One of my most painful experiences is a man who comes to work with me who beats himself up for what he doesn't have, what he's not able to do, and that he needs anything. And I'm like, and that to me is the psychology of the day that says again, it's your personal thing.
mm-hmm.
And all I can say is, let me come with you. Let me come with you to the doctor. Let us call that other person and say, will you listen while I go? Because I can't hear what they're saying to me. I leave. I know I was there. I heard it, but I leave and I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's never enough support. You can't oversubscribe to support. And when you have, it'll be like, okay, I can't I can only hear so much anymore. But so like you get professional help anytime you think you need it,
Yeah.
anytime you think you need it, and you keep organizing ways to talk to other people. Rochelle and I are starting building together, Don't Build Alone. It's 4 week series in March. We'll have a link for you at the end, I think. But it's an invitation to create environments that are multiracial and Black led. And that itself is a therapeutic activity. So you're always looking for help. And
Yeah.
I'm smiling because I know Jessie has some ideas about what it is to get help.
I do, and I appreciate the question. It's a very good question. So the way I would frame it, one thing I thought of is, racial health disparities, of which they are many, and almost all major illnesses are disproportionate in our communities,
Mm-hmm.
including hypertension, which is very, very common in the African American community. And that is, I think, related to stress, social conditions, economic conditions, etc., including structural racism. Um, and that is something that happens. What happens when you're going through political stress, which we are going through as a country and a world right now? Yes, and we have, but it's kind of much more apparent. We've been dealing with stress for a very long time, since 1619, probably even before. When enslavement first began, which was even earlier. So the question for me isn't, everybody needs support and help, in different ways. Some people might maybe more acutely, more critically, but everybody needs support. So the question for me is, what kind of support and what kind of professional help? Because the professional help is structured so that it's often part of the problem. People have to wait a long time to get appointments. Their insurance isn't accepted. They might not have insurance. They have Medicaid. You can't get an appointment with a specialist if you have Medicaid for weeks and weeks. I'm talking about, experiences that people have every day. The inadequacy of our so-called healthcare system, and some people in it are caring. I know caring doctors. I consider myself one. I work in a large medical institution. I'm at a practice, but medicine itself needs to be a helping profession. The professions need to change. They are frankly, too much organized around for profit. How much time do you have to spend with patients? People need real help. They need the professionals to be more into the patients, more into the people, more about communication and building and listening. I talked to a group of women at a Canaan Baptist church in Harlem on a Saturday, and they were telling me, all these issues of the doctor is moving quick. You have a short amount of time. You come in the room, they take your blood pressure, and I advise them to stand up and organize the doctor. Tell the doctor you need him or her. You need them to listen to you, to look at you. You have an issue. You want to get their help. So the professions need to be changed. They need to be reorganized. They need to be recommitted and taken out of the profit mode and put into the people mode, which is a lot of reason why many professionals, doctors, and nurses go into the profession in the first place. So I consider myself an example to medical students and nursing students of a way you can practice that is not trapped. I refuse to be trapped and constrained by that system. And so that for me is, where is the professional help in this? Why is there a mental health crisis among our people and the young people? Why doesn't therapy work and cure people and help people develop and grow? There's a lot of, constraint and non-developmental, very, very unhelpful approaches that really have more to do with profit than with curing and helping people. Unfortunately, it's a crisis, really. And we're trying to build something different, very, very fundamentally different, and a whole different approach. And it has many different aspects to it.
Thank you for that. You know what? I'll go ahead on and move to the next question. And I just want to remind that even though the questions are geared toward this political climate that we're in, because it's causing so much trepidation, anxiety, but I want for people to understand is that even though I geared the questions toward political, but at the end of the day, a lot of the techniques that the ladies are sharing here today, it applies to all types of stressors, not just political. But that's what I promised you guys, that I would bring the ladies back 1 month exactly to the day after inauguration, because I know that our community is feeling it with what's going on. So that's why I formed the questions that way. The next one is, how can individuals balance staying informed about political events with protecting their medical and physical well-being? Anybody?
My favorite is independent news. Really is. Independent media is so critical. KPFA,
does that exist?
Yes, it does. It does. And you're part of it now, Rodney. So thank you. Very much, right? But no, seriously, I'm moving back to California from the East Coast and discovering KPFA and our local KBBF, otherwise known as KBBF, 89.1. I realized that how some of my politics was informed even before I got to the East Coast and met Lenora Fulani and the political organizing community that she led and has been a leader in. So, but independent, it helps because it's so not trying to direct in a particular way as to inform as to what's happening. So that kind of not being manipulated into taking a side is really important.
Yeah.
I do call my friends who do listen to things I don't listen to, and they laugh at me because both as an organizer, I'm like, and who said what? But I learn from what they're saying because now we're in a conversation and I'm still learning what's happening and what's going on. Um, so that dance of being informed and again talking to people around us. So, but independent media is really critical for me. I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that. I don't think, but just, everything we're talking about is the importance of being connected. Social
Right.
isolation, as I think Raquel was mentioning, is very, very unhealthy. It's one of the most
Mm.
unhealthy. Being by yourself, and not being connected, not being social, not visiting people, when
Mm.
this is very, very important. And I think that the kind of um, lack of connection, the distance between people. So how does that relate to what your question, Rodney, in terms of being inundated by the crisis, political crisis, and hearing about it, and there's so many things going wrong right now and dangerous. So sometimes I think you have to turn the TV off, or find the kind of what Raquel's suggesting, find the kind of media that's positive, but
Mhm.
also know your limits, and kind of go talk to some friends, or there's some organizing going on, in the next in the church or in the community center. There's local things happening that are very, very positive. At the same time that there's all this crisis in major
Mm.
organizations and institutions, there's also a lot of positive things happening at the local level, which people
Mm.
can participate in, and be inspired by. And those are very important. They're real and they're important to support.
Absolutely.
I have a fantasy of people choosing a time that they come to a particular like Zoom call or
Mhm.
coffee, and they're like, okay, now we're going to talk about what's going on. What did you hear? What did you hear? Because it can be so stressful when, like, me and my partner, when she'll say, oh, this is what so and so and so and so was saying. And I'm like, oh, no, don't talk to me. And it's like, well, what do you mean don't talk to me? Because this is important. It's like, I know it's important, but I'm like freaking out when you're talking to me about it. But you know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
how do like, but so this is part of the creating our mental health is that we can organize the environments where we can learn things together. And whatever people are going to do, that's kind of like a freedom festival activity. That's a creating our mental health activity. It's, oh, maybe on Fridays, John and I will get together and we'll read those papers and say what we think
Yeah.
and then leave
And
it
talk about
alone.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So both, because it's this is the Martin Luther King creative maladjustment. We are supposed to be upset by the news that's
Mhm.
going on. We're human beings working for decency in our life.
Mm.
We're supposed to feel like askew and because we're we're caring and empathetic. So organize creatively how you can actually stay informed
Mhm.
and not risk your health in it because we have to be able to sustain ourselves to be able to organize.
Very important.
Yeah. Moderation. Moderation in the mediums or the media that you decide to look at or listen to. And I think that being physical, getting out and physically uh, doing something instead of just having, a conversation sitting in a barber's chair at a barbershop, get up and do something locally. So I think that's what, you ladies were saying. Moderation and physically doing something, I think, is the way to go with um, to have those individual boundaries and so the next one is let's see I think I want to go with because maybe the last one because I know there's a lot of information at the very end that we need to get to and make sure that uh our listeners and our followers get because you ladies are about the busiest ladies as far as what you have going on than almost any special guest, especially reoccurring special guests that I have on. So I want to definitely save enough time at the end. Let me see here. I think I want to. How can individuals set boundaries to prevent political discussions from escalating into conflict?
Hmm.
I think I want to end the questioning with that one.
Political discussions.
Yeah, let me repeat it. How can individuals set boundaries to prevent political discussions from escalating into conflicts?
I think Raquel has a lot of experience, and probably Rachelle as well, with the uncomfortable independent conversations. I'm not saying it right,
Yeah.
but that creates an environment. I think you create an environment of caring and of openness, but setting boundaries, I think, is creating the environment in a positive way. But I also get the edge. There's an edge, right? That's kind of danger, a risk. What do you think, Raquel?
Well, and I was curious what Rachelle was thinking too. Maybe I
Rachelle,
can
what do you
say
think?
a little bit more afterwards. Or Rachelle, do you want me to go first? You want to go first?
Well, I'm sure you'll add to what I was thinking, but
Yep.
what Dr. Fields was saying points to the environment that we're in. And I think our activity of building with people that we're in the environments with, we're learning how to have uncomfortable conversations. And they're uncomfortable because they're always uncomfortable. They don't need to resort to any kind of pain, harm, violence if we're building relationships with people to create the kind of environments that are allowing for this kind of really intimate conversation, because it's important conversations that we're talking about that mean something to people. And I think when we really learn how to improve our relationality with each other, respect each other as humans, and you know, really ask more questions um, of each other to make sure we're where we are together. And I just think the uncomfortable independent conversation started for me a whole new way of listening, which often gets short shrifts. I mean, listening to me is 80% of communication, not
Mm-hmm.
50. And it's a challenge for me to really listen. And I think the more we try to be giving in our conversation with each other, that kind of activity promotes the environment where we can have these difficult, needed conversations. And they need not be oppositional or violent or anything like that, I don't think. I've never had one of those. And I've been in a lot of tense conversations, especially about, the things people say don't ever talk about because it's too uncomfortable. But no, it's the relationship building that precedes all of that. And I think that's what we are focusing on helping people to do
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yeah, that's lovely. The I don't know that I have m much to add to what you said, Rochelle. I think you said it. I think what we work to do, what I work to do, what we're trying to help ourselves and others do is to listen without assuming we know what the other person is actually saying.
Hmm.
And that's the beauty of a multiracial or a mixed environment is you it kind of like says automatically like, oh, I don't know, who are you? I don't know what you're going to say. I don't understand you. And we can use that to actually slow ourselves down. I think too often we use language that we think we know what the other person means and is saying.
Hmm.
So then it's hard to hear, and it's really hard to say, oh my God, I have no idea what you're saying, but I'm having a hard time hearing you. It's really emotional for me, and I'd rather that we not do this right now.
Hmm.
Could we do this at another time? Or can I come back to you on it? Or, can I tell you what that means to me? Or are you interested? Oh, maybe we can't do this. Or maybe we need somebody else. Or can we slow down? I cry. I mean, I'm a crier anyway, but I cry much more publicly now because one of the things that I'm working to do is to not have my discomfort alone. So
Mm-hmm.
that when people are saying things and it hurts me, I cry. And I'm like, yeah, I'm crying because of what you said to me. That's okay. You can feel the uncomfortable too, because we're creating this. It's not me, it's not you. We are creating this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to me an expression of I'm going to hear you, I'm going to give my response, and we're going to figure out what our next step is together. And it may be that we walk away, but I'm always going to go, I don't think I knew what they were saying because the media is really trying to overdetermine what our words mean. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm I'm invested, we're invested in creating our relationships where we're hearing each other, giving our responses, and seeing what we can build, what we can discover with one another. That's the inner, I'm going to go back to MLK on this one. The International Society for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment. That's what we're working on. Let's keep building creative maladjustment. It's all of us are uncomfortable. We all got to open up our ears, and we're going to keep creating our mental health. We're going to keep building together and not build alone. And we're going to be doing that with the Freedom Festival and with you, Rodney. We're going to keep inviting people to do things together to create what emancipation, freedom, and independence looks like for us today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all for that last question that we have for today. And
The
so
poem we still want
oh yeah,
to
oh
The
absolutely.
poem.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But what we're gonna do is like we always do, we are going to I know I always ask, at this point, if you have anything that's coming up, if you have any events, or how can people reach you, how can people reach out to you, I'm going to still do that, but I know it's probably more even a collective, but I will ask individually, even if it's just you just giving out your email. But Raquell, I think I'll start with you because I think you might cover the Freedom Festival and pieces that we have going on, and then I will absolutely, Dr. Fields, I will end with you because I am on the edge of my seat for this poem, and so that's how I want for you to end your your Raquell, what do you have going on? What's coming up? How can people reach you? And all of the above.
Thank you. So people can go to freedomfestivalusa.org. So it's all one word, freedomfestivalusa.org. And they can click on events and sign up to come to our Freedomista meetings that are the second and fourth Saturday of the month. The second and fourth Saturday of the month, they're on Zoom. And that's where you can learn more about volunteering. If you have an event that you want to create or that you want to bring to the festival, June 19th to July 4th. And of course, there's the contact form and donations because it is a not-for-profit activity. It's grassroots built. But really, we'd love to talk to you and see you. So come to the Freedomista meeting and or send an email via freedomfestivalusa.org.
Thank you so much for that. And personally, at one of these days, my plan is to hopefully be not just a learner and of the Freedom Festival and some of the other events you guys do, but to actually be a participant as well. Like you guys help me on the Black Man's Roundtable to get out certain messages, and sure that I'm 100%. I want to make sure I'm able to give you guys my all. They wanted for me to even do another episode of the Roundtable. I'm like, I just can't. So I'm trying to deal with doing a show a week, right now and being able to get that out. But I'm looking forward to learning and being involved and so many of the other things you guys have going on. So thank you for that. Rachelle, Anything coming up in other than the Freedom Festival or anything like that? But if not, absolutely. How can people reach out to you to see what you do?
Well, I was gonna need Raquel's help to remind me how to frame this, but she and I are creating a 4-week group um, for professional and emotional development in March.
Cool.
And we do have a link to that, I believe, Raquel.
Yes, you
Um,
can find it at improvscience.org/wellness. So improv science is all one word, .org/wellness. And Rachelle and I are branching my consulting business's wellness offering. So that's the 4-week. Did you want to say more, Rachelle?
no, and I'm really excited about that collaboration with you, Raquel. And it's the first of what I think is going to be many
Yes.
such time limited groups, 4-week groups. So yeah, we'd love to have people.
Told you guys they were busy. They were busy. Rachelle, do you want to give your email? If you want to
Contact.
give your email out, if people want to just reach you for personal consultation, consultations or whatever.
Right. Coaching, therapeutics, consultation.
All that.
Yes. My email is Rachelle Moore, all one word, 2016 at Gmail. And I think that's
Okay. Say
the
it one more
easiest
time for
way.
me, Rachelle, without
Okay.
just say it exactly like it reads. One more time.
Rachelle Moore 2016 at gmail.com.
Thank you. Great. Dr. Fields, Dr. Jessie Fields. I'll feel a little bit more comfortable calling you Jessie once we get to know, once I get to know you a little bit better. But this is your first time on, and I definitely look forward to that day when I'm able to do that, because that means we actually know each other. So, but Dr. Fields, same thing. I know you're going to be involved in some of the things they talked about. But is there anything additional that you have going on? And also, how can people reach you, reach your practice, all that good stuff?
Okay, well, I'll give different ways. One is Creating Our Mental Health has a website, and you could find it, the eastsideinstitute.org, eastsideinstitute.org. So it's EASTSIDEINSTITUTE.org. No spaces between eastsideinstitute.org/creating our mental health. Or you could just, find Creating Our Mental Health. And it's Creating Our Mental Health. There's a Creating Your Mental Health that's different. This is Creating Our Mental Health. And I'll give my email, which is JESSIEFIELDS 1616 at gmail.com. And I must say, Rodney, I've been calling you Rodney all evening, and as you said, I should have been saying Mr. Butler.
No. You can call me Rodney, but I can't call you Jessie right now, in my opinion.
You can call
I
me
had to do the same
I'm fine
thing.
with you.
Yeah, maybe the next time.
One
It took me.
compromise is Dr. Jessie. Some people call me Dr. Jessie, which is
Yeah.
sweet. I find very sweet.
But yeah, it took me a minute to call these ladies by their names as well. Now, if anything before we get to this poem, is there anything anybody maybe left out that they thought about as far as anything coming up?
I think one other
Cool.
email
No.
address
Oh.
for Rachelle and I is wellness, WELLNESS, at improv science. That's IMPROVSCIENCE.org. Wellness at improvscience.org. That will go to both of us.
Thank you for that, Raquel. All right, Dr. Fields, with this poem.
Okay, thank you. This has been very special. Really, really wonderful to be here. Thank you so much, Mr. Rodney
Thank you
Butler.
for being
It's
here.
great being with Raquel and Rachelle. Okay, so my feet is tired. but my soul is rested. Mother Pollard, 1955, during the Montgomery bus boycott. Dr. King and Marching Feet. The road that leads from Montgomery to this place, from Montgomery to Birmingham, from Birmingham to Selma, from Selma back to Montgomery, a trail wound in a circle long and often bloody. Yet it has become a highway up from darkness, a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. There are those who tell me that I should stick with civil rights and stay in my place. We were convinced that we could not limit our vision. This is a calling that takes me beyond national allegiances. It may well be that the world is in dire need of a new organization, the International Association for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment, creating our mental health. In the face of unrelenting violence, Dr. King arrayed the all here and now heart of creative maladjustment. We mourn his death and celebrate his life. Martin Luther led the march. People across the world followed. The pattern of their feet as they walk through barriers is the thunder of the marching of Joshua, and the world rocks beneath their tread. His vision eternal, he watches still. The battle is in our hands. Tremor the century's chains. Stand with the poor. Stand with the outcast. Stand with the righteous as the radiant star of hope, with the play of possibilities. See anew. Remember. Hold it all close. His voice, the dense fabric of history, carry as we rise and gather onward. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. Ladies, like always, it's been a pleasure. I have so much respect for you all and what you do. It is called the Black Man's Roundtable, but it wouldn't mean a thing without a woman or a girl. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching, BMR family. I hope this was a treat for you. It was a treat for me. And time that we are able to have these ladies at the round table to bring us closer together. They do what women do in our community. They are the matriarchs. They are what we need. So with that, catch the Black Man's Roundtable the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the Black Man's Roundtable with Rodney and Rodney the second and fourth Thursday of the month. And the Black Man's Roundtable Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby. Those drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, we'll see you in them streets and them suites. Peace. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.